Hello and welcome to Fowl Plays, where we look at tales of tabletop tragedy that are sure to ruffle some feathers. I'm your host Boss Goose, and in today's story we have a player who's new to D&D that joins a group run by his DM friend, where he quickly starts to get picked on by the other players for making a human fighter. As the game continues, the teasing turns into all-out bullying as the group excludes OP from several fights and quests, and continuously ridicules their character, until the DM finally wakes up and does something about it. Before that, though, it's time for a game of Samurai or Samurong, the rules of which are as follows. Here we have 3 samurai warriors, but one of them is an imposter, and it's up to you to guess which one so we can vote and eject him from the video. So go ahead and cast your vote for A, B, or C, and we'll reveal the results in 3, 2, 1. And if you chose option B, congratulations! You sussed out the imposter and we can all rest easy now. And if you chose A or C, then quickly hit that subscribe button to activate the emergency meeting so I can share updates with you whenever new videos are available on my channel and tons of already existing content to keep you entertained for hours. Now, without any further delays, take your seats and wet your beaks as we dive on into today's tale. So, this happened a couple years ago, and the story happened over a year of playing. So I'll try and keep it shorter and explain what needs to be explained. No names are included, and I changed my character's name to remain anonymous. At the start, my friend, DM, invited me to a D&D campaign with all our friends from high school. Originally there was only 5 of us in the party, and our DM. I started out making a character, who was a samurai from the land of the far east of where our stories began. We all had our own distinct backstories and lore that fit within the lands we came from. And the DM was kind enough to build a world based on our backstories, not a preset one. Upon the first session, I noticed the group making jokes about my character being the only human, and a fighter at that. Didn't know that being a human fighter was considered boring. I just wanted to create a samurai, and fighter seemed the easiest route. To explain, in a group of 5 there was me, the human samurai, a half-elf sorcerer, a drow rogue, a high-elf paladin, and a centaur cleric. Our first quest goes on, and I try to make a good first impression with the other characters, teaching our sorcerer to fight with a staff in case he ran out of magic, and eventually finding a cloak for the drow to help with her sun sickness, because although they were strangers, they were still teammates, and my character cared for those who need. The cleric was non-partisan, and we shared stories of our home in-game, becoming friends. The paladin was rather rude in character, but never explained out of character why, until I asked him. To which he explained, I added last minute that I hate the continent you're from, and all its inhabitants, due to a massacre that happened around when you were a baby. So I'm taking it out on you. I tell him that's unreasonable to blame a person who wasn't participating in the act, who didn't even know about the massacre anyhow, and he simply replied, "It's what my character would do, and will do. Don't take it so personally, you're just overreacting." I started feeling uncomfortable when I told the group in character about samurai's religion and how they worship dragons. Suspiciously afterwards, we had encountered a young dragon that had been starved. I had asked that we help and set it free since it had done nothing wrong and it seemed to only want food. I fed it, but the moment it took a bite of the food, the sorcerer and paladin threw spells and attacks at it left and right until it had died. I had severed my bonds with them in-game, and they told me, "There he goes, overreacting again." And the DM does nothing. Shortly after completing the quest, a gap forms between the party, and our DM has us go on individual quests for our backstories, that we could all read on through Discord. My story seemed to be the only one where the members of the group would watch and make jokes, telling DM that the story was boring as my character struggles to find who his real parents are. Meanwhile, the other characters are on similar stories or on epic tales of revenge. Through exposition, and apparently a joke that the players wanted to play on me, the group joined in my quest after completing theirs, and forced my character to be transformed into a tiefling by making the DM put my character through emotional trauma. In the lore of our world, humans could turn into tieflings based on trauma and how much guilt, distress, turmoil they feel. I found out my samurai's character was originally from a Viking family and was adopted by the man who killed my parents when I was an infant. I had asked why, and the group out of character said, "So your character wouldn't be so goddamn boring." And I kept quiet and kept playing. Fast forward to when we're all together again. We're doing a siege on the Underdark and the group tells me to hold the line here and don't let the outsiders interfere. It's not like you'd be much use in this fight anyway. We're just outside the main gate leading to the Palace of Lolth, and I had been excited due to the fact that we had taken a break for a while due to COVID happening. The DM sees this and has a moment of clarity that the group is actually being really rude, and homebrews a sequence called the Prime Effect, where a character rolls 2d20 and 1d10, and however many it lands on is however many I kill, in whichever way I explain it. I go on to have a great time, and the rest of the party kill the BBEG, at the cost of sacrificing one of our players who was cursed by Lolth. I ended up having to take a break from D&D due to my grandma passing away. My condolences to OP. Fast forward to when the rest of the players join. We become a 13-player heavy group, due to the DM not wanting to exclude people, with two of the new people being a Mountain Dwarf and a Minotaur duo, who operated very much like Ferritor from MKX. The dwarf had a flirtatious spree of hitting on every character, but would want to murder me in the group, openly wanting me as a test subject for volatile concoctions and to test her machinery that had no good track record of being safe. The Minotaur would join in on the fun by physically placing me on the sideline and kicking me out of quests, saying they already had a strong Minotaur and no need for a cheerleader tiefling. I brought it up with the DM and asked if I could drop from the group, and he said, "Hey man, I'm just trying to keep everyone happy. If you want, you can go on your backstory stuff and continue that for a while," which I did, to be left on red while the DM focused on the group's campaign and others' backstories, usually leaving mine for last. Fast forward through this to the funeral of the player who had sacrificed themselves to kill Lolth. The dwarf and Minotaur pushed me out, saying I didn't care about the character who died and holding against me that I didn't mourn with the rest of the group. Which was unfair that I couldn't, because I had a work schedule that didn't line up with everyone, and also didn't live in the same state at the time, and my grandmother just passed away, so different time zones were also a factor. The DM had it at this point, and encouraged me to say how I felt, in and out of character. I kinda laid into them after having a bit of in and out of character encouragement, so I made both of the characters cry by adding in that I did mourn, creating a shrine in the garden to the sacrificed player and praying by it for a month, which the DM allowed because he said, end quote, "It's not like he had a choice, he wasn't able to be there for the session, and I'm tired of you guys holding it against him." The Minotaur started flexing his muscles and threatening to kill me for speaking to him in such a way. Little bit of backstory, this Minotaur is the last Minotaur alive, thanks to a single man genociding his race with a legendary sword. I told him to bring it on, and we fought it out. Minotaur was level 4 and I was level 9 at the time, but his player didn't understand that leveling was a factor. I had grappled him and suplexed him so hard into the floor, his horns got stuck. The dwarf tried joining in, but the DM's main NPC, QG, stood in front of her saying, "This has been a long time coming, and they need to settle this alone." Up to this point, when the Minotaur was playing, he'd always discussed how great his horns were, as they were large and extravagant looking. So I thought of kicking his horns. Little did I know, instead of cracking them with a 14 or 16 or something, I roll a nat 20, and the DM describes how I viciously break off the last Minotaur's horns to shocking effect. The Minotaur never bothered me after that, and the dwarf and I became cool after we hashed out our differences via conversation, in and out of character. But the DM ruled that no more bullying will take place, and that they would kick people who tried causing problems again, which he did. The Minotaur, our bard, the dwarf, most of the party got kicked, leaving the original 5 of us who started. DM talked to Paladin, and eventually the Paladin chilled out, and we became friends after. We kept playing until our schedules wouldn't align for it anymore, and now we're starting a new world. I'm not bringing back Samurai, as he was officially retired and became a shogun of a land, marrying a tiefling woman from his Viking hometown and settling down to have a family of 6 kids. I'm going to play a monk sorcerer for the group's new campaign. Since then, I've spoken to the group and we've gotten through the situation. Hopefully this just doesn't happen again. TLDR, story of a human samurai who was treated like shit. Then the DM finally did something about it, stopping the bullying. Well, it's nice to see this story had a happy ending at least. This kind of bullying is never acceptable, in or out of game. It shouldn't matter if someone wants to play a human fighter or not, it doesn't automatically mean the character is going to be boring, and it doesn't give you full license to just push around the player. I'd say what makes a character interesting is 90% their backstory in RP, not what race they have written on their sheet. And what started out as maybe an interesting situation that could have led to some good RP moments with the Paladin's Prejudice quickly spiraled out of control as everyone seemed to pile on and escalate their teasing of OP. While there were a lot of examples, the big three to me were forcing his character to change race against his will, making him sit out the fight with the BBEG, and worst of all, the treatment he received for missing an in-game funeral when his grandmother had passed away. Not only was the player neglected and their agency taken away, but it's a really rotten thing to do to go after someone when they've suffered a loss like that. The DM did eventually stand up and put a stop to things, but I really don't understand why they had waited so long, especially where OP was their friend, and allowed so much to happen. It seemed pretty clear that OP was being ostracized from the rest of the party for quite a while, and while it's nice that the DM came up with something for him to do during the BBEG fight, it shouldn't have had to come to that. And the DM should have intervened so OP could have fought the big boss that they had all been building towards. In the events that followed, I imagine having a massive group of 13 players contributed to DM not being fully on the ball and neglecting OP, but at least they did put their foot down and kicked everyone who continued to try bullying and causing problems, and allowed for a little bit of karmic justice. I'm happy OP was able to continue the game and everyone seems to be friends now, and I wish him luck in his upcoming adventures. Fingers crossed, the nightmare is over. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video and sticking around till the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you check out my channel for more D&D stories. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a goosebump in the comments below. The support is greatly appreciated. But until next time, be good players.